we would invest like our marketing dollars back into our clients. We made sure we were legit. And then it's like, okay, how can we equip them to talk about us? So remember that form that I talked about where we got all of their stats? So part of that was, okay, we know where their favorite restaurant is, right? And so instead of spending $50 in a magazine ad, we would spend $50 giving them a date night at a restaurant. And doing those things, like the return for our dollar was so much more impactful than taking out this ad in a magazine.
Welcome to the Love Your Brand podcast. If you're looking for real conversations with real people, you're the right place. Let's go!
We have Miss Jody Hill today. She's a mom of 4 kids with a bonus 5th. She's lived in Nashville for the past 20 years. She started a photography business in 2007, named one of the top 3 wedding photographers in Nashville in 2009. Published in People magazine, produced and spoke around the world, launched a software company supporting photographers, created an annual retreat that ran for 8 years that catered to the couples in the industry. Let's go. Please welcome Miss Jody Hill.
Right out.
Woo!
That's an impressive.
And the crowd goes wild.
The crowd goes wild. That's an impressive little resume there.
That is very.
Who is that person?
Who is that person? I want to know more. I'm very intrigued.
So long, I messed up at the end.
She sounds amazing. Pretty incredible.
Thank you.
You almost
should
know each
marry
other.
her.
You know, I've been looking for a woman just like what that description is.
Really?
Now I know she exists. Truth be told, she is my wife.
Score.
Amazing. It's fun to have your wife on the podcast.
It is awesome.
Thanks
It
for
is
joining
just
us,
such a
Jody.
blessing.
Thanks for having me.
I'm trying to act professional. I want to snuggle up, get close. But
Told him to watch his hands today.
yeah, so if I'm just sitting here doing this, I'm watching my hands.
But this man has
Dad
jokes.
jokes.
Always got to tell them to keep it PG. Keep it
Gee.
PG.
BG. Thanks for joining us, babe. Jody.
Thanks for having me, Mr. Hill.
Oh, like
Mr.
that.
Jason, Mr. Ramsey. Not Alexander.
Not Alexander.
Not Jason, a.k.a. the Chief. Jason W. Ramsey.
Jason W. Ramsey.
W.
W. You know, Jody has such a background in photography, so she understands lighting, camera angles, all this. I was a little nervous and apprehensive
tell.
bringing
I can
like
tell.
an expert in here. You know, like, don't judge us. Look, just getting this thing started. I mean, we have a mobile studio in the side yard in Rock Hill. We have neighbors that pop up in the frame. We don't know what we're doing.
You were a little sweaty.
This is impressive. I mean, I'm pretty impressed.
It happens.
Yo.
Sometimes we get tickled.
I have a feeling I'm just going to be along for the ride on this one. And you guys are just going to be giggling the whole time.
I don't know. You got a lot of
Possibly.
good stuff here, Jody. So take us back. Talk to us. Tell us about your photography business. What would you like to discuss around the beginnings?
Well, the reason I'm even here is because of this man.
Ooh,
It's really.
true story.
You want to share why I'm even here?
Okay. Jason, we got a minute to tell our story? Like how you even got such an incredible guest on your podcast?
It's part of Love Your Brand. We tell people stories.
Well, and actually, like, it relates so well. Like, there's a lot of parallels in marketing, like, with our story.
Yeah,
Was that intentional when you pursued me?
possibly.
Like, he's like,
So-
I can pursue this woman and use it.
Well done. So I'm going to write an ebook because if you're a marketer, how to find your wife through marketing.
There you go.
Because that's honestly how our story kind of goes down. And to where I didn't know this woman. I knew nothing about this woman, but you have access to so much about people these days through social media. And so when I stumbled upon this woman and I was at the place in my life where it's like, it'd be nice to meet somebody, it'd be nice to have a wife. And I kind of had this thing with God. I was like, I'm not going to online date. I'm not getting into that mess. You know my community. I'm the only single person in my community. I'm not going out clubbing. So she's got to be an incredible woman.
Mhm.
And so then I stumbled upon her on social media.
It's like you knew of me from like past, but we never like connected or anything. So it's like
Well, actually,
we're mutual friends.
you ran an event many years ago, which we can chat about later. And I was at that event, but I didn't meet you.
Yep.
You didn't meet me. Neither one of us remember a thing about one another.
No.
Talk about a great first impression. But then, so I knew who she was. All right. But I didn't know anything about her. And so I go on social media and I start seeing things she posts. And so often, our social media, we say it's a highlight reel of everybody's life. Post your best stuff. Put your best foot out there to where, look at me. Typically, that's how it comes across. But there was something different about her. You could tell there was an authenticity about her, things she was posting. And the things that mattered to me, she was posting that same content about parenting, being a dad, and family first. So we shared what appeared to be the same values. And so when I knew, I was like, this is a beautiful woman.
Fake.
All fake. That's where the story's going. But, and she was a beautiful woman. And so I was like, this woman seems like the real deal. I got to reach out. I got to learn more. And probably took me a few weeks from this point. Like, how do I reach out? I felt like a little high school kid, nervous to ask the girl on the date. And so she posted a story, just random story. I think one of her kids, one of those 4, fell into a fountain. And so I posted something and got a quick reply in the DMs on Instagram. And then I was nervous again. How do I reach back out? So finally reached back out. And before you know it, we start having conversation on Instagram. And we ended up fast forwarding, won't go into, all the details, more high level, but we spent a couple days on Instagram DMing, asked for a number, spent a couple days texting. By the 5th day, we're FaceTiming for long periods of time. And then from there, it's been
the rest is history.
And for you folks listening, he officially slid into her DMs.
I slid into those DMs, ladies and gentlemen. And so for $29.99, the course on sliding into her DMs will be available.
Is available.
Go to your Spotify.com.
Get your future wife.
Get your future wife.
I love it. I love
Joking,
it.
but serious. But honestly, like with marketing, because here on the podcast, we talk about how can you grow your business? How can you love your brand? How can you attract new clients? And that's why we brought Jody on today, because with her background, she's done so much of this and she has some incredible insights of how she did this. And our story with that, it's a similar parallel in business to where the kind of fundamentals of getting a client or growing your business is somebody has to know you exist first, right? And so I reach out so she sees this person exists. Then from there, she has to like me. She has to find me humorous or insightful or profound or funny or a combination of all these things. And from there, she's going to go on the path of learning more about me, to see those things.
Nurturing.
Oh, he nurtured me.
I nurtured her, all right. And then from there, that's where trust is established. And to where, when I knew early on I wanted to marry her. But I knew that I couldn't just ask her right out of the gate, hey, you want to get married? And so I had to build that trust. And once that trust was established, I knew that I could get the commitment. And that's with business. If you go after somebody, get them to know you, push out content that they like, that they, jive with your brand. And then you can ask them, here's a solution for the problem you're facing. Here's how to take action. And it's a formula that works every single time. So we always laugh about it with our story because it's like, it's the way business works, the way our story works, right. Social media. Did I miss anything? Anything to add?
No, what I think is really interesting, this is, as you're talking, like this is the first time I thought it in the other way too. Like I am the business, like Jody Hill, like I am putting out stuff that is drawing certain people to me, like you, like my future husband. That was not my intent.
Sure.
But it's like there was something that I believed, there was something I was passionate about. And so I'm putting that content out there and it is drawing people to me, like the parents or the moms who are like, oh my gosh, I resonate with this. Or the single people, they're like, peace out. Or like guys looking for a husband, like it drew Jonathan in because he was like, yes, this is what I connect with. This is how I'm experiencing her brand. And then it's like, okay, we got to take it to the next level. And so then that's when, So to parallel that, like with businesses, we see businesses online, and you are a business. So what is it that you are putting out that is drawing the kind of clientele that you want to draw and that you want to work with? So that's like step one. So you get them in, and then now, okay, like once they've reached out and made that contact, maybe it's been like filling out your inquiry form or sliding into DMs. Like now you got to really show yourself, like who are you actually are.
Yeah.
Are you who you are presenting yourself to be? Are you going to respond fast? Are you going to be personable? Like whatever your brand is about, to carry that on so the relationship can eventually move to matrimony.
So I always
That's
say
awesome.
this: branding is pulling, marketing is pushing. I'll say this
that's
all
so
day
good.
long. And so you were putting out there your personal brand, Jody.
Yeah.
And so you were pulling in, the viewers that were attracted to,
And
the
I was
way
going
you-
fishing.
Yeah.
you were,
Fishing.
Right.
you were going fishing. So
I didn't know she existed, And when I saw that, it was like, this is exactly what I'm looking for.
the same thing with businesses. They want instant gratification. They think that every social media campaign should be about conversions right then and there,
Right.
but it's about branding. It's that longevity. It's creating that messaging to
Building the
pull-
rapport.
to pull people, to nurture,
It's so
to
good.
pull people in, right? Because it took him a while. He looked at a few posts,
Oh, he was
you know?
watching, aka stalking me for.
Well, that's what's funny. So I don't know too much about social media. Jason and I laugh often because we have younger crew on our team to where they know the trends. They know how social media works. Jason and I are just like, show us what you want us to record, what to say, and then you make it look pretty and you do all that stuff. And with that, I didn't know that when I would look at her stories that she could see that I was looking at her stories.
It's like
And
interesting.
because we weren't following each other at the time, I don't think, but her
Nope.
profile was public, so I could see it. So I'm thinking, oh, she can't see me, so I'm just going to creep on her. I'm going to look at what she's posting. I'm
no
going to
one
be
will
all
ever
weird.
know.
Well, apparently somebody knew, and that someone was my wife before she was my wife.
True way.
And so, but so much of business is about curiosity, and there was a curiosity for both of us in that aspect of I'm curious to learn more about them, and it's with business because let's keep it on dating for a second before we let deep dive with Jody. If I was true that I wasn't out there dating women, just going through all that, but if there were 10 women out there, they all offer the same thing per se, and the potential of being a bonus mom to my daughter and being a loving husband to me and all these things. But there are different aspects of why this one is going to appeal to me more versus this one. And it's the same thing with brands, to where there can be 10 soft drink companies or 10 chiropractic offices or 10 dental clinics or whatever. What is it about those brands to where your first perception, when you look at somebody, there's physical attraction, right? And so it's like, hey, that's my type. That's my style. I like her hair. I like the way she dresses. It's the same thing with a brand. You can easily look at a brand and see just how they represent themselves, their logo, their colors, be like, that's not for me. And they may offer an incredible product, but there's all those components, so there's a curiosity that we had in our journey to where it was just constantly, I want to learn more. I want to learn more. I want to learn more. And so as businesses, if we can push out content to where it keeps our audience engaged saying, I want to learn more. I want to learn more. Then when we're posting emails and social and any kind of content, they're hungry for it and they're looking for it. And they'll kind of be raving fans for our business because there's like, you got to check these guys out because what they post is incredible.
Well, and it's stuff that adds value to the consumer, right? Like the person who wants, to find out more. They're not like, hey, let me find out how often you work out and how big your muscles are. Like, don't care. That I do. Never mind.
Let's pause there.
It's like, what's in it for me? And that's like what we always have to keep in mind is we're not there to be. So like, I'm not there to be the Jody show, right? Like in dating, like I wasn't like, let me tell you all about me, which that is a part of it. But the person, let's relate it to businesses, like the consumer who comes to the business, they want to know what's in it for me. Like, how do you make my life better? And so they want to get that content because it's going to make their life better. You're not just going to send, say you're, a dentist office. You're not going to send all these emails about how great you are and all this stuff. It's like if you can send emails that nurture them and help their lives be better, they're going to be more inclined to stay and keep following, and you will be top of mind next time you're like, oh, I need to go to a dentist. Or
So it might not happen right away.
it may not happen.
Jonathan always says this about his LinkedIn post. that you will see people reading your stories, but may not engage. But 6 months down the road, 12 months down the road, heck, 2 years down the road,
Right.
they've
Never
seen
know.
multiple posts and then they convert.
They're watching.
So that's how brand strategy is so intricately tied to your KPIs and your ROI and your business that it's hard to measure exactly the metrics. That's why a lot of businesses, it's hard to find the true value because they look at it more as, with paid ads and stuff. You see direct conversions. They see an ad for a red chair. They go to your site. They buy the red chair.
Yes.
It's not like that with social media.
It's very true.
So,
It's a good point. With Jody, would you say, so your background was photography, as Jason said, as you read off kind of your bio. Even though your experience is specific to the photography industry, would you say that business is business, marketing is marketing, like across the board? So even though you were in that specific industry, anybody that's listening right now, business owners, with whatever they offer, what you've learned and what you're going to share, does that apply pretty much across the board? It doesn't matter what industry you're in?
Yeah. So I think the thing to like you said, marketing is marketing. Like those principles will never change. But the way that we carry out those principles, they will change based on the industry that we're in. They will change based on the technology that's available, but like they don't change at its core. So even though like, as we're just talking about different things that, I did in my career as a photographer and a speaker and all the things, like those are still applicable to whatever business that you are in as the listener, regardless of what field that you're in. You can still take this and be like, okay, how can I take this principle of like building community or referrals or relationship, and how can I apply this to what I'm doing?
It's really good. So how did you get into photography? Is that a lifelong passion since you came to this earth?
No, well, I've always had a camera. Like I was that, kid at summer camp or at school, which is why I love just all of the photo albums that I have, old school. I've always loved shooting, but I never thought it would be an actual career choice for me. And so that was the biggest thing that I always loved. It was something that I loved. I loved capturing moments. So kind of fell into it in my first marriage with my spouse at the time. And so we did that for over a decade.
Wow.
And we never thought that it would take us where it took us. But it was learned a ton doing it and trial and error. And then, we pivoted our business to a lot of online education and in-person workshops, like helping others achieve the same things that we did with our caliber of shooting, but also running a business, which is a huge component. You can have the best work in the world, but if you don't know how to market yourself and you don't know how to take care of your clients in the back end, like your business will crash and burn. So
this really interests me in the photography space, especially now with all the new technology. You have AI where you can essentially shoot in the dark and it will create all the lighting of a $20,000 light studio.
Incredible.
Right?
It's craziness.
And then, you have it now with phones, the capability of phones.
Yeah.
Versus,
this is all I use. My iPhone today. That's all I use to shoot.
And I asked somebody once, I said, well, what do you find more valuable? If I was to show up with my phone and take really good photos, I know composition, angles, I know what you're wanting to capture,
achieve
the essence, right?
Yeah.
And, do the rest in editing. Or would you rather me bring in a big honking camera?
Big honking
Honking.
Like size. Bigger is better, right?
So
bigger is better.
But I think it's like, I don't know what it is. It's like when they see that the big camera and all the equipment, it automatically adds value. But
perception, perceived value.
Right.
Perceived value.
Yeah.
But the truth be told is I've went on several shoots. I've been in the background. I take shots with my phone while they were doing all their angles, but unfortunately they might not be good with angles, right? Their resolution may be a little bit higher, but we end up going with a shot that I took off my phone from maybe 3 feet back, right? With a wider angle, because it's all about angles and creativity, right? So I've always been torn about that because in this industry, people always like, well, I want to do a photo shoot. Well, that's a big word. Like, what are your expectations of a photo shoot? I think they've changed drastically over the last few years with the technology.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And AI.
That's a good point. So, I think with photography too, it's such an industry that I'm not in this, so this is where we're going to lean on you, but to where it's like referral based. You know, I mean, I could go online and search photographer, Charlotte, North Carolina, see what pops up, click on their website, decide who I want to choose. And so it's like you have to stand out and be unique in the industry, you know, because it can become such a commodity. You know, photography can become such 100%. A commodity. And so and clearly different photographers, we've all done photo shoots, they have that feel. They have, when you think of Jody, you know, that your pictures are going to look like this with this kind of lighting or this kind of angle. I don't understand it. I just see the finished product. I'm like, it's beautiful. I love it. Print it, sign, done. And so Jody, like, how do you, in a space to where, you know, somebody just goes on social media and say, hey, I'm looking for a photo shoot. Does anybody have any recommendations in this city? Like, how do you be unique and stand out in such a big area that's crowded?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just as we're talking about AI and all of these, you know, and the cameras that are coming out, oh my gosh, are just getting better and better and better and better and better and better. Like, cameras we had were great, but then now it's like, oh my gosh, with the technology, right? So photographers are a dime a dozen. And so, like, to your question, okay, how do you stand out in a sea of photographers? How do you stand out in a sea of restaurants? How do you stand out in a sea of clothing apparel lines? Like, what makes you different? And so what we did is we knew that the average client can't tell a good photo from a great photo. Wow. We, as the experts, were like, oh my gosh, like, look at that Rembrandt lighting. And they must have been using like a really small light source for that, because I see how that's going down, or their white balance is off. You know, like, the average client does not understand that. And
I have no idea what you just said. I'm that client.
Case in point, right? And the client, so it's like we're so focused on like, how can I put all these like amazing images out to be different? And the average client can't tell the difference. So it was like, what do we have that no one else has? And how can we stand out on that hill? Hey, last name. Hey. How can we stand out? And we realized that no one was us. No one. And so how could we take who we were, our personalities, what was the experience we wanted to create and give people, and how could we amplify that? How could we do that on our website? When we were in business, gosh, which was over like a decade and a half ago, Facebook existed. I think Instagram was there, but not like what it is now with ads and all this stuff. And so like in our social, like online social media presence, like how can we put our brand out there to really be different? Because if a client, bride and groom, are going to site after site, they're just going to see images after images after images, and it's just going to be blah. But then when they go to our site and they don't see another bride and groom, they see me and they see my husband at the time, and then they're like, ooh. And then if they have this completely different experience as they're looking over our stuff, and like, then like that was really what allowed us to stand out. And then just figuring out like, what is it that we have to offer that some other like photographers don't? We're like, oh man, well, we've got a male and a female. So when we've got two shooters. So it's not just like Jody is the wedding photographer. It's like Jody and her husband are the wedding photographers. You've got a woman, so it's twice the coverage. You've got a woman who can be in with the girls. You got a man who can be with the men. And so just like finding out like what makes you different and unique, and then how can you talk about that, highlight that, sell that, that just makes it like a no-brainer.
Yeah, a lot of
good.
A lot of companies are, I don't want to say scared, a little cautious with being different. You know, they think that if they're too different, you know, if they get too far out of their lane in their industry, that it will turn people off.
Right.
So
it's true.
Well,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, the question I would ask them is, who are they trying to impress? Are they trying to impress their peers? Because they're like, oh my gosh, these other... So let's just go back to photography. These other photographers, I think I'm going to be weird or different, or they're going to like hate me. Like, they're not the ones paying you money. Like, the clients speak. So is it clients who are drawn to that and love it? Who cares if you get hate or scorn or made fun of? I mean, that's my take. Like, I'm like, what does it matter? Like, they're not your paying customers. Listen to the people who are paying you.
Yeah. It makes me think of like selling based on features and benefits. So, my background was in the corporate world. We sold these very high-tech equipment, to organizations. And so it could be, the features so it was like milling equipment, CAD/CAM type of equipment.
Which I don't know what that means.
Right. But you get the nerds, like myself that love this technology, and it's like, hey, it's 5-axis milling. It has grinding burrs, milling burrs, like all this stuff that our audience knew what those things were. But the company down the street has the same thing. The company down the street has the same thing. And the company down the street has the same thing. So how are they going to buy? And so therefore, to be unique and set yourself apart, it's like you have to give insight into the company kind of thing. So when Jody's talking about that, I see like their business was their business brand. Their brand was a photography business, but they had a personal brand as well. So what she was saying, you go to their website and there they both are. So the personal brand is, this is who we are. And so immediately, like, people see past just the logo. They see past all the brand elements and they see the actual people of, if we move forward, these are the people we're going to do business with. And it immediately builds just a little bit of, that, oh, okay. It's like letting a guard down of, I'm going to be guarded until I trust you kind of a thing. And so it invites them in. And so our personal brands, I say this often, our personal brands and our business brands are synonymous with one another. So when somebody thinks about Jody, they immediately think about the brand as well. And if somebody thinks about the brand, they think about Jody, because they're one and the same, even though they're communicating different things. And so, does that make sense?
Yeah. And I was going to say, like, I'd be interested to hear what you guys think. And people long for connection. They long to be seen and they long to be known. And so we think about in the context of relationships, like, oh, you're my husband or kids or friends, community. But it's like, I have a completely different experience with a company when I walk in and I'm greeted with a warm smile, or I'm calling. Like, oh my gosh, the difference it makes smiling on the phone when you answer your phone. Like, hi, this is Jody. How can I help you today? This is Jody with TalenAlexander. How can I help you? And that personal touch and connection, hands down, will put you heads above others. And it's, I got my car fixed recently, and there was one like office that I would call, and she was like, hi. I'm like, hey, is this so-and-so automotive? She's like, yep, what can I do for you? I don't even know if she said that.
Right.
And so like, it was just so cut and dry. And then that was the only resource that I knew. So I still went to them. But then the owner was there and he was like, hey, so glad you're here. And he was like being personable. He's like, oh, you're, at the time I was a single mom. So he's like, you're a single mom. He's like, I've been there. And just like, I was like, okay, like I want to keep using this business. But if he wasn't there, and I had other options, which I was actually had another place to call, but like they were low on my totem pole until I made a connection with that owner, because he cared and he was personal and he made me feel seen. So I think all companies, all brands, all businesses can up their level of making people feel seen and loved and increase their business just by having the people on the front lines be more warm and welcoming. And you think, it's customer service, I can pay them, pennies. They actually represent your brand so much more than you think.
And we're all in customer service. So often people get stuck on titles, and when we create a business, it's so easy to put, I'm the CEO, I'm the founder, I'm the president. They sound great, but they're just titles. A title to me is just a different responsibility. But customer service is one of those things to where it doesn't matter what you do for the company. We're all in customer service. And those are such simple things that they're small to where you can start integrating today. They don't take monetarily. You don't have to invest money into it. You just teach people, hey, smile when you talk.
Yeah.
Say your name, greet them, ask how they're doing, thank them for calling.
Yeah.
Just these little things that, again, are human interactions of daily relationships. The way that I speak to my wife, the way that I speak to my friends, the way that I speak to my kids should be the same way that I speak to prospects and clients all day long. But I think, so y'all did a great job with your branding. I think because Jason, with our clients, it starts with the brand. You have to have that developed first before you do anything else. And you had a very successful business, over your tenure in that industry. So after you built that brand and had that established, I mean, how did you start growing the business?
Great. There's so much to that.
Where to start?
Where to start? So starting a new business, never have done this before. It was like, all right, what do we do? How do we bring clients in the door? We had a friend who branded us, and which I would not recommend normally, but that was her job. So I think she didn't even charge us. So we had free branding. So that made us look legit, which was helpful. Our work was really good. And so we had this great perception that we were like awesome and had been doing this for a while. But truth be told, we really hadn't. So we're like, okay, like we don't know anyone in the industry. How do we start getting this ball rolling? And what I did is I started doing research and thinking about the industry. Okay, where do brides and grooms go and where can I find them? So the first thing that couples do is if photography is really important to them, they'll go to a photographer, but I'm like, I'm the photographer. Where next? Venues. The venues is their number one thing that they try and book as soon as possible because they book far out. And bridal stores. So, wedding planners. So like the brides that we want to work with, like they had a budget like big enough to hire a wedding planner. So what we did is we focused on those top two. And so I did some serious like Googling of who are the top wedding vendors in Nashville, who are the top wedding venues. And what I did is I like had put this Excel sheet of all their information and made an effort to connect with them. So we started getting on lists. Okay, there's this networking meeting. And so we'd go to the networking meetings. And what I would do is I would carry a Sharpie in my back pocket. And anytime I would meet someone, I would get their business card and then I'd write a note on it to help jog my memory of like who this person was. And the thing is when we were meeting these people, the intent was not to let me tell them all about myself.
Right.
It's tell me about you because people love talking about themselves, right? And so that's another way to stand out and be different is when you are meeting and connecting with other people, like show them that you care. Yeah. And so we would start to even talk outside of, oh, you're a florist. That's awesome. It was like, oh, do you have kids? Or I saw you online. Like I would stalk them. I would follow them. I would be commenting on their blog posts. Now it's, a lot of Instagram. And so we would build these like connections and relationships at these events and we were there all the time. And so we started to be this like consistent face that was showing up. And there's a lot of other things we did, but I don't know if you all want to like interject. Well,
so good.
About that.
So you took my strategy, you stalked.
Yep.
So heard that number one. So she took that from me. No, but I remember when I would travel as well, I would meet somebody, say it was like a dental lab when I was in the dental space. And I'd meet them, I'd chat with them, I'd ask them those things as well. And to where get information from them, it just shows that you care. And right after I'd leave, I'd go over to a corner, I'd pull out my phone, I had notes, and I would chat or I would write whatever it was, And if it's things from the business, hey, the business has stayed flat, we're looking to grow, or, my little girl just started college and all these elements. So the next time that I reached out, those were my anchors of picking up like a hook of finishing off the conversation that started weeks ago, months ago, years ago.
Yep.
Hey, last time we met, you said that Mandy was starting school and she was a little apprehensive about it. How did she do after, getting started?
It's huge.
It's huge.
It's simple.
It's so simple. What's
but
that
huge.
Phrase? Just because it's simple, it's not easy. And it just takes a little bit of work.
Yes.
So that those are not like these high level strategies for business. Like to grow your business, you have to get deep into the weeds of blah, blah, blah. It's like, be a human.
Yeah.
Care about them.
Yep.
And show them that you care.
Yeah.
And that is, to be frank,
hey, Frank.
2 decades in, I feel like I went to so many meetings, so many pitches, and, everybody was just so uptight and miserable. And I was like, this sucks. Like, I want to have a lifestyle where I can enjoy myself. I can create, new stuff from nothing, thin air, and enjoy it. Have a good time. That's got to be possible. Yeah. Right?
Yes.
So then I started going into meetings and, and just talking about random stuff. Like, I'm like, how do I peel back this onion? Because if I got to work with these people every day, it's going to be miserable. Right? It's like people leave corporate jobs because they're miserable. They're in a cubicle. So how do you make it personable? How do you make it enjoyable? Right? A good company will take that in consideration because they care about the culture of their company.
They'll have values and a mission statement. Yeah.
Can you imagine that every time we walk in as TA, they're excited. They're like, hey, this is going to be awesome. We're going to learn something new. We're going to try something new. We're going to create. We're going to execute. This is fantastic. I can't wait for the next time they come in. versus, hey, we're going to make you a lot of money. This is how we're going to do it.
Just do your job.
And we could, and they could make you a lot of money. Now, it's the catch-22. Do you want the best of both worlds, or does it matter? I've seen CEOs that's like, I don't care as long as the numbers are there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
The C levels are all about those numbers.
So,
but everybody else a little different.
How do you nurture that to where we can bring that passion? Because that passion is going to permeate through your brand. Your culture is going to permeate through your brand.
It's so true.
When your friend created your brand, they created offshoots of your brand. They created your logo type, your symbol, your mood board, right? Mm-hmm. You built your brand over several years.
It kept evolving.
You met these people,
sure.
right? When you met these people and you introduced yourself, hey, this is who we are. Now tell me about you.
Yep.
They're already creating their own brand of you in their mind.
Yes.
So you built your brand over years.
You talked
100%.
about you talked about the like going in and random things, because we have to, once you have your audience, they're attracted to your brand, you have to push out content. You have to give them something of value to keep them engaged and want to read the stuff that you push out there. Do you ever watch Seinfeld?
Some.
Of course.
Like I know the characters.
Do you remember? Do you ever see the dance? Show us the dance. Elaine's dance.
Yes.
All right. So yeah, maybe we'll pop a picture of Elaine's dance right now. Jody can do that. But there was an episode where they potentially got picked up for a show, and they went to these executives, like on a TV station, about their show, and they were like, "What's the show about?"
I've seen this one.
George is like, "Nothing." They're like, "Nothing." He's like, "It's a show about nothing," and they were like, "Nothing." And he goes through. He's so excited about it, and the humor in that is that the show Seinfeld in itself is a show about nothing. Meaning there's no plot, there's no agenda, there's nothing that this episode finishes, the next one, they're going to go here and do here. It's just a day in the life of all the characters of Seinfeld. You have their personal brands, Kramer. When I say Kramer, you naturally think of him. When I say Jerry, when I say George, when I say Elaine. So they build the characters. So like when Jody built her business, you think of Jody, you think of Zach, you have your perception of them. And it's like, I like you. You're entertainers, you provide valuable content.
Personable,
you have that.
Fun.
Absolutely, all those things. So that's what gets you in. And then, so the Seinfeld thing, Russell Brunson, founder of ClickFunnels, he wrote a book, .com Secrets. And within .com Secrets, he goes through and he shows you email campaigns to run to your audience. And one of them is called the Seinfeld Sequence. Mm-hmm. And so it's to where it's literally about nothing. Because there's a time for a sales campaign to where you're trying to sell a product. There's a time for a nurture campaign of delivering value. And then the campaign about nothing is just, it's including them in the life of what you're doing. And so to where you're not always posting, Jody, something about photography or this is the best lighting secrets or what to do. But it's just, so you're constantly seeing what Jody's doing. You're allowed to be invited into her life kind of a thing. And to where the people, they want to see that. They want to see when you go to the dentist. And all of this was before social media existed. So now with stories and reels, everywhere we go, we cut on Instagram or TikTok maybe, or no, I don't know how that one works. Instagram. But we're filming and people are invited into that story. Mm-hmm. And so I think y'all did a really good job from what I've heard of, inviting people in. So my question to you, how would you provide value to the people? So once people knew about you and they knew what you offered, how are you consistently adding value to them?
Yeah. So the process for our wedding clients was different for the process for when we started becoming educators and leaders in the photo industry. So for the wedding clients, it was pretty immediately. Like we weren't like feeding them out all this content, but we were nurturing them really fast. It was like our website, get on the phone with them, be personable, smile, let them talk. Like it was a quick nurture, quick close. They're our client. And then we continue to nurture them throughout the process, which I think this is so important. I remember getting new car insurance. This is a little side note. I remember getting new car insurance. I felt that insurance broker person was like so personable, so great. As soon as he got me as a client, he disappeared. And I ended up canceling and going with a different company. And so I think it's so important that the experience that we are giving our clients are consistent through booking them as a client through and beyond.
Huge.
Yeah, so huge.
Well, that's the culture piece of it, right? Because at some point you can't do it all.
Right.
So you got to build up your culture to where your people that you
Right.
bring in, right?
Yes.
Because let's face it, you can only be so many places at one time.
That's so true. Yeah, because you may be the face of your business, but you handle the one area or a few areas or a lot of areas that you're really good at. And then the idea of business scenario is you find other people who are better in those areas and you hand that off so you can free up your life to be with your family or whatever your goals are. And yeah, and so that culture like has to be communicated, the mission and the values of what our company stands for, or it's going to...
I like that sound.
Maybe we can add that in.
We do sound effects here.
Sound effects, yeah. We make our own sound effects.
We make our own sound effects.
Comfortable.
Comfortable.
Um,
I don't even remember the original question, but
it was I asked about how do you deliver value
to
them?
Yes. So I created this 75-step process for every single client that we would book, brides and grooms. And Jason's like, what?
Wow.
75
Yes.
steps.
Simon would go-
75 steps.
That'd be ecstatic.
Simon's listening right
He's
now.
like, 75 steps.
I'm listening.
And this leads into such a great talking point about how our clients can be our walking, talking billboards for our brand. But I'll get there in a second. So 75 steps from the first point of contact through booking them as a client through the end, like when we deliver wedding albums and even a year past where we send a happy year anniversary thing. So it's essentially like a whole nurture sequence that we are loving on our clients. So as soon as when we booked in person, when we met with a couple in person, we actually sent them away with a marriage book that I had come across, loved it. And I did a lot of the grunt work of this. And so I was like, what if we send them like a note like, hey, so great meeting with you. Even more important than your wedding photography is your marriage. And so just as much as you are spending time planning your wedding, it's so important to plan and prepare for your marriage. So every client that we would meet with walked away with this book and this note, like, oh my gosh, like what wedding vendors are doing that? So then it was all of
that kind of stuff is what attracted me to this woman. Sorry, baby, go ahead.
When I sent you a marriage book, I was like, get your act together.
Yes, but read this first.
I loved your act.
I'm sorry.
And so after we booked them, we did a whole thing of like, we sent them a little like get to know you sheet. And so we filled one out and it was like, what are your favorite foods? What are your favorite blah, blah, blah. So in the mail, yes, like snail mail, they got this thing where they got to fill all of their answers out about themselves. And then they would send that back to us. I had a self-addressed stamped envelope that they could dump that back in the mail and send to us. And then we had this resource. And I think this could be so valuable for so many businesses. We had this resource on this client that told us everything they loved, like their favorite restaurants, favorite drink, favorite sports team, all of these things when their birthday was. And so I used that throughout the 75 plus step process that I created to love on our clients. Wedding day, show up with their favorite drinks. They love this place as their favorite restaurant that they go to. In the process, like I would get them a date night card, like, hey, make sure to take time out and invest in your relationship with each other. And a lot of the other things was like, hey, I need to send this email at this point, blah, 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 just to stay on top of the details. But using that to really like give these clients such an incredible experience where they were just like,
wow,
oh my gosh.
That's awesome.
That's so awesome.
That's really bringing the personal touch. That's for sure.
Because so often as businesses, we're focused on one thing, making the sale.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we can make the sale. And that's not typically difficult. But like Jody said, I worked in corporate, it was so many sales reps to where after that sale happened, they dropped off. And then when a problem came up or support was needed or just friendly touch points of checking in on you, wanted to see how are you doing? Anything I can do for you. Like they take 2 minutes to make a phone call and do that, or now text, to where you can even do that. But totally lost my train of thought where I was going with that. Wow. That's gone. That is gone.
That's a fly on the wall.
Where was I going? Off the fly.
Off the fly.
It's okay. We don't even have to try to get it back.
I can't.
That is
It's not even tethered anymore.
We're in South Carolina right now. That's already over in Tennessee. It is gone.
But the cool thing in that is, go ahead. It sounded like you were going to say something, Jason.
Amazing.
The sales reps, right? They come on, get the clients.
They fall off.
They have to, right? They have to fall off to some degree.
Right. They got to hand it over.
Yep. Right. It's about the handoff, right?
Right.
And then they stay in touch, right? They need to, which is, but a lot of them don't, right? They move on to the next thing because usually they're paid on commission. They're looking for the next sale.
Right. Their job is the sale.
The next sale. And a lot of people, that rubs them the wrong way. It's like,
right.
Wow, I got this personable person, and then they pass me on to this person, and they're, they really don't care. I'm just another client. I'm going through this process. What happened, right? And I mean, me personally, I've experienced it a lot in the traditional agency model that we had, where that's how we kind of worked our projects. And it was very time consuming. And I said, why are we doing this? Like, we don't even need salespeople. I'm not a salesman. Like, I love what I do. I love finding out what the problem is. I enjoy just talking to them, right?
Yeah. And
can I help? How can I be of service, right? Do I know someone that can help them? So through that process, I said, what if we're essentially all managers, project managers of people, right? So we need to be along for the whole ride, right? So that's when me personally, when I started TA, I created that model with no salespeople. We were just, a handful of project managers. And asked Jay Hill when he came on, I was like, Jay Hill, I need you. You need to be me, right?
Right.
There's no way anybody can be you. Look at you, man.
Sure.
You're a vibe.
You can't, you've only got the bandwidth to do so much.
Yeah.
So that's that constant saying, you got to replace yourself constantly in business to grow.
Right.
And I think that's,
so many people have insecurities and they're threatened, that somebody's going to replace them or provide more value. So that's the right mindset. I mean, that's leadership mindset, servant leadership kind of a thing, to where I'm going to go with you. We're going to rise together. But you brought up a point, jumped out to me. You talked about the handoff, and to where, so your business in the past, smaller, is just the two of you and maybe some people that you brought in for stuff. But bigger organizations, kind of what you talk about often is the culture, to where when you start hiring employees, it's so critical that somebody that comes on board knows what the culture is.
Yeah.
These are the things we stand for. These are our values. These are how we serve people and treat people, to where when that handoff happens, and so you have an onboarding process and somebody deals with this with the client, then it hands off to this person, then it hands off to this person, you're going to get treated the same way all along those steps, even though you're dealing with different people. Because so often you have a client really likes this one person because they're kind, because they take care of them, because they treat them well, because they follow up. Then they go over here and they're like, I don't want to talk to that person. And they want to go back to this person because of how they're treated when this person doesn't deal with the activities that the client needs. And so that culture piece is so important. And the culture goes into the whole brand of this is who we are. And I think in a previous podcast, we talked about Richard Branson, with Virgin Mobile, Virgin Galactic and all that stuff. And his whole culture of thousands of employees is like, it doesn't matter who you talk to in that organization, you're talking to the same person. He's done such a good job with that. And I think that has to be such a focus. But you also, as you were talking about adding value, you talked about referrals.
Yeah.
How, for your business, was referrals a big piece of that to grow?
Yeah, 100%. So I think our business was 100% referrals.
Wow.
And I think that's what's super interesting is so we had the privilege of shooting a wedding that got published in People magazine. I'm like, this is awesome. We're probably going to get so much business out of it. And so it was, published over like 2 million copies went out.
Dang.
So awesome. It was a really cool thing to, be like, yeah, we're publishing People magazine. Like we were so pumped about it. We're like, okay, let's see, the business that comes in.
You're waiting for just the millions.
Waiting for like the onslaught of calls. So I already told Jay this.
I'll be quiet.
So Jason, like how many bookings do you think we got from that publication?
People magazine, 2 million.
You know how I feel about this. Like instant gratification, I'm always against. I'm against instant gratification.
So what's your guess? How many people signed up, called them, reached out?
Maybe a dozen.
0.
Wow. Well, that's even more impressive.
It's even more
0.
depressing. Depressing is, I think, would be the better word.
Well, no, I don't like to use that word. I like to use impressive. I'm trying to take all the negativity words out of my vocabulary.
Glass
there you go.
Is half full.
Your vernacular is so good.
Thank you.
And I mean, it was a great, it was a great story. Oh no, I had a giggle starting.
Maybe.
That was such a perfect picture of, we would have these even local magazines approach us and be like, hey, take your marketing dollars and put this ad in a magazine. And there's so many problems with that. And I'm sure that works for some industries, maybe on some level. But what we decided to do was to invest the marketing dollars in our business to where it was important. So one, at some point along the way, we're like, okay, like our brand is not working for us anymore. Like we need to like kind of freshen up. So it was because remember, perception is reality. So if people are looking at our brand and it looks a little dated to them, like what is that saying about who we are and what we do? So like investing in our visual identity. And then we realized the biggest bang for our buck that we invested in promoting our business and getting new clients was through referrals. And if we can deliver such a phenomenal experience to our brides and grooms to get them talking about us and proselytizing us to their friends and having those referrals come back in, like we've won. So one, just our presence at weddings, people would come up and be like, I'm not engaged yet, but you have to shoot my wedding. And we even had a bride like follow up with us. It was like a year later, she got engaged. She was like in the bridal party and she was like, you're shooting my wedding. I'm so ready to book you. Are you available this date? I'm like, oh, we're not. We're like, we've got these open dates in this month, but we're not. And she's like, okay, I'll change my wedding date. And our rates had almost doubled. And it was not an issue for her because she, one, had experienced us, and two, so like that was huge in and of itself. And just two, she knew the quality, like that, the referral from her best friend who had gotten married. So all that to say, like where I was going with that is we would invest like our marketing dollars back into our clients. We made sure we were legit. And then it's like, okay, how can we equip them to talk about us? So remember that form that I talked about where we got all of their stats?
75
stats. So part of that was, okay, we know where their favorite restaurant is, right? And so instead of spending $50 in a magazine ad, we would spend $50 giving them a date night at a restaurant and doing those things. Like the return for our dollar was so much more impactful than taking out this ad in a magazine. And that was a lot before like Facebook ad marketing came along. And so we started to interact with some photographers who found out that like targeted marketing like worked really well for them. And that's great. Like if it's working for you, awesome. But don't let that be like your only thing that you're relying on. And there's so much more power in like the spoken referral raver, like the walking, talking billboards for your brand. And we would do this for vendors as well. We would serve on them, love on them. Like you would be surprised at how many wedding planners we talked to or venues. And they were like, yeah, I shot this like $100,000 wedding and I never saw any images.
So that referral, when they gave the referral, that other person, the woman that was getting married, she created a brand in her mind of who you were.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
She may have never even seen like any of your logo types or your
She hadn't
visuals,
even seen any of our work at the end of the day.
But
yeah,
a testimonial painted a brand visual of who you guys were.
Yes.
And it doesn't get stronger than that.
No.
And the value was there. It doesn't matter.
Right.
That's what I want.
Yeah.
Right.
Listen to what Jody just said. She said she hadn't even seen our work yet.
Yep.
And so for that, in an industry where your finished product is about the work.
Yes.
It's one thing. Yeah. It's one thing if somebody's coming our way for marketing and they haven't seen how we've helped a client with SEO or social, but something that big of this is the most special day of your life, right? And I haven't seen your work and I want you to shoot regardless.
Yeah.
That shows the power of branding, the power of everything that they had built and the perception around their brand. Like that is massive.
Yep.
It's the experience. What I found
100%.
that even if the experience is good, and yeah, we failed on multiple occasions because everything, to be honest, is truly a test. But a lot of businesses and CEOs and whatnot, they cringe. They want the guaranteed, right? A lot of people want the guaranteed, but it's not. Everything is truly a test. And anybody that says different, I just totally disagree with them, right? Now, granted, if they're serving a particular market and they have a lot of strong data, the success rate is a lot higher, right? But it changes with technology and new competitors in the space.
Well, and you're saying it's about experience. You can even fail and like fall flat with a client. And if you can come back in, let them feel heard, loved, seen, do your best to
they will refer you down the road.
Yes.
Even if you didn't meet their their boss's expectations, right? Say a certain number they wanted to hit in Q1, right? And they didn't have the patience to wait, 6 months, 12 months, like we recommended. And we said, you know what, we'll give it a go, even though there was an increase, but it didn't pan out and they wanted to go somewhere else, right? Because they needed the instant gratification.
Yeah.
If the experience was good and delightful, they will still refer you.
Yep.
So true. I hope you are taking notes because Jody is dropping nuggets here.
Mad nuggets.
But what she just said, she's like, even if you fail, it's what you do after the failure that people are watching, because we're all going to mess up. We're all going to do things wrong. That's kind of expected, in every aspect of life. But what you do after that is what's most important.
Yep.
That to get people to speak about that and to come in and be like, hey, this is where they blew it. This is where he did this. But what they did next shocked me. They reached out. They did everything they could to make it right.
Was to
own it. Yep. I mean, look at our relationships. When I mess up and, I put my pride down and I go to Jody and say, I was wrong here. Yeah, I really messed up. And she sees it as from a real place. She melts. I mean, she's mush. But when I come in and the pride's still up and I didn't really mess up kind of a thing. There's still going to be that tension between us.
That way.
And so if we go to our clients and I really messed up here. I am so sorry. And
what can I do to make it better?
I do? And ask them. And don't just expect that I'm going to do this and this is going to help. Ask them, what do you need for me to make this right? And if they tell you exactly what they need and you do that, it's going to increase exponentially when they go, because it's not all about just positive experiences with a brand. It's about how you do these things. And so that's huge, babe. Awesome.
We have had relationships in the past over 2 decades where things happen. I think I told you a mentor years ago told me 20% of what you expect to get or the clients that you have, mark them off. Like at the end of that year, something's going to happen. Something in their personal life, something in the business organization itself. You're not going to make everybody happy. You're not going to have 100% satisfaction rate, right? He told me, whatever your projections are, whatever your retention is, go ahead and knock off 20%.
That's good to remember.
And I was like, wow, that's mind-boggling.
I don't want to.
No, you don't.
1 out of 5 clients when you look at it like that.
But
it's a lot.
But it happens. And when it happens, sometimes there's money owed, right?
Yeah.
And depending on that, sometimes in the past, to be honest with you, I've chalked it up and been like, you know what? It's okay. And I let it go. A lot of companies would be hard, go after it. It gets a little, it's like fighting in a marriage. You start fighting up here, right? No, but you did this, No, you, we're going to go to court, blah, blah.
There's no solution. Recipe.
There's no solution. Right. I would rather let go of $2,000, right? And down the road, I did this before. I've got referrals from clients that I've let go of $2,000.
Yeah.
That I've let go of $5,000.
Right.
And I've made that back 5-fold in referrals in the future.
Yeah.
Just from not, reacting and understanding that people are people, right?
Where do you want your energy going? Do you want to spend all of your time like, send them an email, be like, hey, this is Ode. And then at the end of the day, like, do you want to be spending all of your time, your emotion, your energy going after this? Or do you want to spend that time like building your business and bringing more clients in
What's
the door?
that worth to you?
Right.
That's good. It's really good.
Good stuff right there for people that get hung up on that. Because I know a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners do. Seen it firsthand.
Yeah.
Elsa said, let it go.
Let it go.
Let it go.
Oh, here we go. It happens every time. We're always singing something.
Well, awesome. I love singing.
Sounded pretty good.
So referral. Yeah, you like that? Just trying to, I know what you're doing. I see it. It works too.
Beautiful butterfly. Blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Right on. So referrals is, pause.
Uh-oh. Here we go.
Oh,
Insert giggles.
oh, man. Yeah.
I've been taking this class to up my speaking game.
Oh,
Have you?
cool.
To replace my ums and ahs.
When does it
Oh,
start?
that's hard.
It was starting pretty soon. Let me
I
check
thought
my
you was gonna
watch.
say, I've been doing it for a
Watch.
year.
This is my whoop. What am I thinking? It's too much strain.
Okay, so you have not started it.
I have
Oh,
started.
Okay, that was my point. I'm trying to pick on you.
So is not the same thing as a and a
Yeah.
When I say that means I like it.
Okay.
So now if you notice any weird pauses, it's because I'm trying to replace my uhs and ahs and all that good
That's
stuff.
hard. It's good.
It's tough. So
It's so tough.
just for my listeners, if I do sound awkward, I'm doing it for you.
There's a lot of thinking that's going on in that head right now.
Love you guys.
Whoa, let's go.
It will cut the episode down by 25 seconds.
True story.
Yeah.
True story.
Yeah.
All right, so you good?
I'm good.
May I go back to this woman?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So
Yes, you may.
Jody talked about the power of referrals, right? So we can all agree it doesn't matter what your industry is in or what industry you are in. Referrals is a great way to grow your business and increase the perception of your brand based on other people's words. But you guys also, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, y'all got on some big stages and were able to secure sponsorships and were sponsored by some of these big organizations within the photo industry, right?
Yeah.
How did y'all get into that and, kind of work that and use that as a revenue source for your business?
Yeah. So I think that's really interesting because nowadays everyone wants a social media presence. I think it's important. And so they're like, I want to be on all these podcasts or I want to be, using this product or whatever. And so I think it can be easy just to sit back, be like, maybe people will notice me. And it never happens, right? Like, what are you aiming at? Like, you're hoping, but you're not aiming at anything and doing anything. And so when we would have these photo conventions that we would go to, and I was like, there were certain brands and companies that we used and absolutely loved. And I would look at the convention floor and mark out who these people were, where these booths were. And we would go and make a personal connection with those people. They would see our face, they would meet us, we would introduce who we were and be like, oh my gosh, we love your product so much. And that started the connection for relationship. And so then also, so that was with the sponsorships. And so then we would say hey, we're doing a workshop. We would love to give away your product. Would you be willing to be a sponsor of that? And so then that started these relationships with those industry leaders and they started taking note of us. But it was us being intentional at these spots and these opportunities to build that relationship with them and get on their mind. And then, I think too, even with, brands wanting to be on podcasts and stuff like that, awesome. But you guys aren't sitting here just who should we, you are sitting here who should we have on, but you don't know Joe Schmo. So let's say I wanted to be on this podcast because I love your reach. I love what you're about. It'd be a great pair, but me just sitting in my house, is not going to bring myself to the attention of you guys. So it's okay, what can I proactively be doing? One, to get on the radar. Can I be engaging in their social media content? If you want to start a relationship with another brand or business, engage.
Slide into their DMs.
Sliding into their DMs.
That's right.
Engage with them wherever they are online. And if you want to be on their podcast, ask to be on their podcast, but how can you do it in a unique and different way that makes you stand out, that just isn't just like Joe Schmo. And this was the thing, I think this relates very well to the wedding industry. planners all the time were having photographers come up to them, be like, hey, will you refer me? Will you refer me? Will you refer me? And it's like, how can you be different from all of those, everyone else? They're like, can I come on your podcast? Can you sponsor me? Blah, 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 blah. Like, what is it that you can do different, like to stand out? And the approach that we took was we were about them, like we were asking questions about them. Or if we had met, a planner and she was talking about, I don't know, I'll just say like parenting. And I wrote it on my little card. Like the next day I followed up with her. Hey, so great to meet you. And then I mailed her a book in the mail about parenting.
Yeah.
Like, how can you stand out and build those relationships with people? And, sometimes it's just straight up like, hey, here's what I do. I'd love to add value to your, your podcast, whatever. But it's all about taking action. Like you can't just sit there, and it's all about relationships and taking action.
So question on that, based on what you said, I think is really valuable. So often with like high level marketing, we create a campaign and blast out to the masses. Mm-hmm. But if you met that woman and heard the thing about parenting, you're taking an individual approach to where instead of going out to hundreds or thousands of people sending out the same thing, kind of high level generic message, you personalized it by knowing, hey, Nancy Schmo, Joe's wife, Nancy Schmo, you wanted this parent, or you said this, and so I'm sending out a book to you. Like, was that a big part of y'all's strategy to where you didn't need to pick up 1 million clients?
Right.
You pick up 1, 2, 5, 10, and it's sufficient for your business or what your goals were. So that is the right approach of just, hey, I'm going to listen to them. I'm going to see what they need, and I'm going to meet them exactly where they are.
Yeah, I think it's very important to know who your audience is. And, I'm sure you guys work on this with the clients that you work with. Okay, like, who is your demographic? Who is your audience? And how can we speak to and reach with them? Because the fact of the matter is there was some great like wedding planners, for example. And there was one in particular where like, we want to work with her because she works with like really high end brides. And when we started to we just were not a good fit. She was like old school, like the way that she would talk about her wedding services to like brides was just not a good fit. And so it's easy to like waste all of this energy on like what you think you want, and it's actually not. So I think that's why it's so important to have like outside eyes and ears who can look at your business, understand your brand, and be like, okay, how can we come alongside you to help you understand? Because I think a lot of businesses actually don't even know who they're trying to reach and who their demographic is. So to have even like a marketing agency like you guys, where it's like, okay, let's help you figure this out so you can hone in your message to get the actual clientele that you want in the door.
It's really good.
So good. I think that's where a lot of companies, that we've worked with in the past and even currently, I call that traditional grassroots, right? That's grassroots. That's like, you identify a handful of people, right?
Yeah.
Essentially in this big world that are your avatar, and you really serve them a personalized experience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go after everyone.
Yeah, exactly. So, now everybody's gotten lazy and it's about, they want to be an order taker, right? They don't want to proactively sell. They want to sit back and get leads, right? And then go after it instead of being proactive. You need both. You need a proactive and a reactive. They work hand in hand together.
There's a phrase that says, try to serve everyone, you'll serve no one.
Yeah.
And there's only one industry that does not apply to. Do you know the industry? Any guesses?
Being a mother and feeding your children.
No.
The motherhood industry. Final answer.
Industry would be toilet paper.
So serve everyone. What is
Try to serve everyone. You'll serve no one unless you're in the toilet paper industry.
Yeah, I mean,
you serve everyone. Everybody needs TP.
Yeah. That's good. Good trivia.
Just FYI, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You also, Jody, you're showing a lot of different areas where you grew the business. And you can just see kind of sequentially, like on a timeline, if you built your brand and you started doing this, you got your clients in and they started referring and your business is just growing.
Yeah.
Eventually so I know some insight, being my wife, you got to a place to where y'all even launched a software company.
Yeah.
That you saw a need within the industry and you created that.
Yeah.
Give us some context about that.
I don't know if I'd recommend it. It was a lot more work than what we thought, but it worked. And the idea around that is you take the 75 things that we do for every client that brings them from, first inquiry all the way through after their wedding. And we put those into a system, because the reality is, most of you who are listening, or even you guys, like, the reason you started what you were doing is because you loved it. Like, I loved photography. Someone loves to bake cookies, and people are like, oh my gosh, these are so good. You should be a baker and start your own business. And so you get in the weeds with all of these things. So one, you don't do all of the other business and marketing things that you have to do for your brand, and your business fails. What is it? 80% of businesses fail within the first 5 years. That's in the E-Myth. So I think that's what that stat is. And so it's like, okay, you have to work in your business. You can't just bake pies. You can't just shoot. But a lot of photographers, especially creative people, they love the creative process, and they just get bogged down in the actually managing a business. So the software gave every single client, every single user, those steps for their clients. And it would just appear and, okay, today send this email to this client. It's already drafted, ready to go. Their names automatically populate, and they would just go down a checklist. So like the things that used to take so much time would just be done so fast. And so it really equipped photographers to be able to do what you love. And there's so many different ways to do that in the different industries that you're in. But it's like, what is it that you love? What is it that makes your heart come alive? Yes, there's always, you're going to 80%, like have 80% what you do is what you love. It's the 80-20 principle. And then 20%, you're going to be doing things that you don't like. And there may be seasons where it's more than 20%. However, I know for me, like, I want my heart to come alive with whatever I'm doing. Like, I want to love what I'm doing. And so what are things that I can outsource to other people and let them take on things so I can continue to do what I love to do?
Wow. You started all that off and you said, I would not recommend it, building a software. Was it the amount of work? What was it?
Yeah, it was, it was not understanding what was involved. And that's probably a great lesson for anyone listening. Like, before it was started as, this is an experiment that we're going to try as a side project. Like, no big, like, this is what it's going to do. We had ideas and hopes and dreams. But when I got into the weeds of it, like, I was the point person of literally like working with the dev team and like, okay, this is what the page is going to look like. When this button is clicked, like that I mocked up in Photoshop, when this button is clicked, then it has to do this and this back end and this back end. It has to trigger this, like all of this stuff. Like, it was so much work. And the irony of it all is we were creating this so like people could spend time with their families, which it did. And it helped. But in the meantime, like, I was sacrificing time with my family. And so that was one of the reasons why I was just like, this is not like worth it. It was such a bummer. But yeah, just know what you're getting into before you get into it.
Build a lot of software. I build a lot of applications, a lot of custom applications, apps.
So you probably understand.
Yeah. And, it took me a few years. So I've got to set those expectations right from the get-go. When you're building something like that, you got to realize, it's never ending.
Yes. Especially with software.
Never
got to
ending.
stay up to date. And
So now I stay away from that. But what I do offer is, hey, would you like to build a team? Because if you really want to go down this path of building a new tech stack, right? That's what it is, a tech stack that you're going to serve people. Then you need to have dedicated developers on staff.
Right.
I mean, all the time. Because you're going to run into bugs. You're going to run into new browser issues.
And I had to outsource to India, and we would like need new people, and it was just so much.
Yeah. So, if you had dedicated people working for you, right, instead of that, and it's never ending. We started an app a 2 years ago, and so we placed an Android developer and an Apple developer, and it's still going on. That stuff is really complex. And unfortunately, there's so many, it's so saturated. The markets became so saturated. Oh, get your own app for $5.99. Oh, get your own application built in 2 weeks.
Right.
It's not a reality unless it's something that's already built off a template. And
right. Like you can white label it or whatever. 100%. Yeah.
So kudos, you went down that path. Very few people do, but once they do, they realize it's a mountain to climb. It's like Everest.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's learning lessons in everything in life. You can look at that And you can look at the negative or you can look at the positive, and you can see, hey, through this experience, it allowed me to see what I don't want. Through this experience, it allowed me to see what matters to me, what my priorities are, and where they're being sacrificed, and things that are non-negotiables of, I will not do that again.
Right,
because
100%.
I mean, as for Jody and I both, I mean, with our kids, I mean, it's family first. They matter first before anything. And we always want them to know that. And we always want to communicate and show them that kind of a thing. And, you know, it's easy to see those things once you've been on the side of tasks and jobs and work that is pulling you away from the things that matter most.
Yeah.
So now I know. Now you know, right? It's like, hey, if you got $500,000 to start and you're going to build a team, then I'm your guy. That's it.
I'm your guy.
I'm your guy. That's it.
Your guy.
I think one question before we close this out, Jody. From your background in photography and with the access with phones, I mean, the cameras on phones today are incredible.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people with like social media. They have their online brands, but they just don't think because they're not photographers that they have the ability to take photos. Like, how do I post good content? Because I'm not good at taking pictures. Like, if you had some advice for people of, you know, hey, I'm looking to post and, you know, help my online brand, but like photography tricks or something to do,
right?
What would you tell people?
So we can always find an excuse not to do something. Always. It's like, oh, well, I can't really have a social media presence because I just don't know how to take pictures. It's like, well, there's a lot of YouTube videos that you can just do a quick Google search and find. So this can be your YouTube video that you come across. And so it's all about lighting. Like, remember, perception is reality. So I think some people just go ahead and post stuff, which on some level that's great, but just keeping in mind, like, perception is reality. Like, if you're posting really like dark and dingy photos and it's in contrast to like what your brand is supposed to be about, like, invest a little bit of energy to like up your game to look professional. Because that builds trust, right? So I think like the number one tip that I could give as like a photographer is light. It's all about the light. So go ahead, like, take your phone right now, like, do this little test, like, stand in the middle of a bedroom where there's just like a one window in that bedroom. So the bedroom's kind of dark, dingy, all the lights off, and just like take a picture of your child or whatever in the middle of the room. And then go ahead and move next to the window where there's no direct light. And what I mean by direct light is like if the sun is shining in and you can see like the window pane, like crisscrossing on the floor, that's direct light. I don't want like you standing in like direct light. Have your subject stand, it's called indirect light. So like you just have the natural like ambient light from outside just floating in, right? It's not directly hitting it. And then take a picture of your subject there. Like, here's your window, like right here, here's Jonathan. And I'm having him turning slightly towards the light and take a shot. And then look at the difference of those two photos, like huge difference. This one will look amazing because my subject is amazing.
Wow, I think you just saved a lot of marriages with that.
Marriage saving advice.
So yes,
get it in good light.
I'm looking for, hey, give me a 10-step checklist on how to take photos of your spouse for social media.
Right.
In the light. Make sure it's good light.
Hey, I had heard, again, I never went on online dating, but I heard like people's profile pictures and these online dating are like the angle is down here or just like horrendous. Like every person I've ever talked to.
It's horrible.
But like the common theme that I always heard was like the profile pictures, like somebody needs to put on a course, teach people how to take your online dating profile picture.
Perception is reality. 100%. Like I even thought about like going into business. Like, could I offer myself as a photographer for people locally just to help these like poor men out? Because their photos are horrible.
Last question about this. So I said that was the last question, but really last question. The flash on the phone.
Yeah.
When to use it? Because anytime I've used it, it's washed out everything. It looks horrendous.
Never use your flash.
Never use the flash. And that's what I thought. Use the lighting as your flash. Get the proper lighting.
Find some good lighting. Do it. Go outside or you got some like, this is a great trick. If you're outside and you're like an alleyway or whatever, you see like a white wall and light is bouncing against it. Like get on the other side where that light is just reflecting back and it's just like beautiful. Like that is like a spot to shoot in. So
if all right, look at me, this camera. So if this is the white wall, I want to take a picture of you. Mm-hmm. I'm letting the light bounce off this wall and illuminate you. Yeah. So I'm standing here taking the picture of you.
Yeah. Yep.
You heard it first. Stop flashing. No flashers.
Stop flashing.
Stop
No
flashing.
flashers.
Nobody wants flashing.
Nobody wants flashing.
So bad. I mean,
Not
if you have to
around
in a pitch black room and you want to take a photo of something for some reason, like use your flash. But
There you go.
it's about content, not the quality necessarily.
I'm glad you cleared that up because I've had some pretty heated debates on the flash scenario.
Don't quote me, please.
Saving lives
Keep me
out
out
here.
of your marriage.
No, what? Don't assume it was my marriage. Bro.
What?
People,
We'll ask
yeah.
Rachel later. We'll see. We'll see. Hey, this was fun. Did you have fun today?
Yeah, thanks for having me, y'all.
This is awesome. This, I'll tell you what, with my own business, I'm sitting here learning from my wife. I was like, I've been with you for a while. Why have you never shared these things with me? This could grow my business. Now, this was incredible. So thank you so much for sharing. Will you come back on sometime?
Depends.
On?
Yes. I'm not going to say yes. No,
Yeah.
I would love to. Thank you guys for having me.
Incredible.
I love it.
Well, this
I
was
love
fun,
it.
Jody.
Yeah, I'd love to be back and appreciate y'all and what you're doing. Like, it's always cool to hear Jonathan talk about the work that he's doing and the clients, how they're excited about like their brands coming alive and the business that, it's just so cool. Like, I love what y'all are doing and it's cool to be a part of it in this small way.
Do you like the color addition to the brand?
I think so.
Didn't we find out last week it's the color of the year?
We did.
The Earth?
Color of the year.
Oh, yeah. Who
Hot
said
magenta is the color of the year for 2023.
that? Who said that?
We had a guest on Bell who shared that with us.
Oh.
And we created this color before we knew it was color of the year. So the point of all that is that
Y'all are so on trend.
these gentlemen right here are so far on trend. It's scary.
Just completely in tune.
It's scary.
Y'all know
Even
what's
though we're
going on.
both in black and gray right now.
Yes, you both are.
It's about the contrast.
It's about the contrast.
Contrast.
That's right. Now it's better. Awesome. Thank you, Jody.
Thank you so much, Jody.
Thanks,
It's
guys.
such a pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you.
Until next time
Till next time.
on the Love You Brand podcast. Get comfortable. Peace out.
Thanks for listening and joining us on the Love Your Brand podcast. Stay tuned for the next episode and remember, share the love.